Hello and welcome to GDL-IL, Google Developer Live Israel, and thank you for joining us. Today we're going to speak about startups, and I'm going to share a few of the tips and advices that I have after starting 6 companies so far in the past 18 years. And if you have any questions or comments, just please feel free to either post them on the chat here or just ask them in the end of this hangout. So without further ado, let me just share with you a few slides that I prepared. And basically what we are going to cover in the next 10, 15 minutes will be some of the main things that I see more and more when I'm working here with startups. And for those of you that are in Tel Aviv area, I highly recommend you to check out Campus Tel Aviv, that we are basically devoting and helping startup to bootstrap and to leverage the knowledge that we have here in Google in order to bootstrap their initiatives and to make sure that they are leveraging and using the right technologies at the starting point. So who am I? My name is Guido Green, and I'm developer advocate at Google. You could reach me out after the show or anytime that you have any comment or feedback on one of the products. We're basically acting as developer advocates and not as evangelists, because we like to devote at least 50% of our time to listen to developers. It could be developers in startups, it could be developers in big organizations, and to bring those comments and feedback back into the engineering groups. I'm mostly focusing on Chrome HTML5, Chrome OS, and cloud platforms. And if you have any other things that you would like to touch on, please feel free to ping me, and I'll try to redirect you to the right people that taking care of the so many other platforms and APIs that we have here in Google. I'm mostly active these days on G+, and you could reach me out at plus.google.com, and then just plus Greenido as one word. And Greenido as one word will work also on Twitter, and you could, of course, check out my blog. By the way, all the slides of this show will be in the footnotes of the Google Developer Live event, and of course on my blog. So first and foremost, when we are starting a company, and I'm hearing it a lot when I'm talking with young entrepreneurs, basically make sure that you don't thinking about the exit strategy from the beginning. If the only thing that is guiding you is how can I sell this thing as soon as possible, you're probably not going to build it to last, as Jim Collins said, but you're going to build it to flop with a high probability. So planning for legacy or planning to build something that will last for many years, much more healthy approach. And I like this quote from Mark Cuban because it's emphasized exactly what I said, but in his own words, of course. Few things to keep in mind, and that's basically, I guess, the first step that each and every entrepreneur need to do before they're starting to run on their venture, is to do a research and a thorough research. Today we have sites like AngelList and many other, as like Second Market, and just Google it, but try to find if someone is already answering this specific pain point that you recognize. And keep in mind that companies that are active and basically are doing business in the market, let's say for quite nice time in the past, are quite efficient, because the ones that aren't efficient aren't there anymore. So it's not a healthy point of view to say something like, you know, the company that I'm executing against is just too slow, too dumb, too inefficient. Keep in mind that if the company is active, it might be that some cases there are inefficiency in big organizations, and of course you want to tap and leverage them. But keep in mind that in a macro view, most companies are quite efficient. Technology is becoming commodity is more to emphasize that if you're building yet another app, or you are launching a feature that is part of a bigger, like let's say, for example, a startup that will hold all your photos in the cloud. It's just yet another feature that Facebook, G+, and many others could and actually now already doing it, but let's say that they didn't provide this specific service. It's just yet another feature, and this is the last point here. You want to try to avoid it, because if you already worked on it for 2 years and then this big gorilla or giant, if you will, is executing against, you're basically in the path of the elephants, and you don't want to be in this path. And for the real need, I see more and more angels and VCs and actually entrepreneurs as well. They're trying to emphasize this point of let's build companies that are built on real computer science and not just another hack here and there. And I think it's very important, because in the end of the day, you do want to make sure that you are building something that will be meaningful. Let me try here just to make sure that you see my screen, and let's again try to share it, because I think I saw that you lost it. Hopefully you're seeing my slide. Coffee drinkers get it right, and actually I just rephrased what DHH from 37 Signals said. It spoke about drug dealers, but I like to speak about coffee drinkers, and as an addicted coffee drinker myself, I know exactly what does it mean. And here we're coming to say something like, build an amazing, great product that people will be addicted to. And yeah, you could give free samples, and you could give short espresso cups, but in the end of the day, you do want to make sure that your experience, your service is amazing, and people get addicted to it, and they are keep using it on a daily basis, hopefully even more than that. Keep in mind that usually efficient organizations are actually delivering and building themselves in a way that they will act as efficient as possible. And in this case, it's just coming to show what we learned in Freakonomics, that drug dealers organization are exactly mimicking what McDonald's is based on in terms of the hierarchy and how managers are delegating responsibilities. And it's true that in the startup early days, you don't need to pay too much attention to it, because each and every member is wearing lots of different hats, but you do want to put organization and structure and objectives and key results and make sure that everyone is running through the same goals. If you are not sure about why users are dropping you or are not using as you want, just go to the drawing boards or try to improve and iterate quickly on your product, and we'll touch about it a bit later. Hiring the right people, I think it's one of the most problematic or challenging aspects. You want to make sure that at least the core team is composed of people that you really admire, people that could do lots of things and do it with a very high quality. Do everything that you can yourself at the early days. It's not only will give you more runway because you'll be more efficient and you'll leverage the cash or any other resources that you have better, but because it will force you to hire and start spending your capitalization only when you must. Don't pass on great people. That's another hard lesson that I learned myself. Usually, those people are very busy, very active, and when you are lucky enough to meet one of them and you see that they and your venture are on the same page, definitely go and do whatever you can in order to put them on the boat with you. We know today that CVs and actually any resume that candidate will give you composed from many years of irrelevance. And one of the best things here is not only to make sure that you are giving some problems and see how the candidate is thinking, but just try to start small. And in some cases, if the candidate is already working as a freelancer, it might be better just to try before you hire him for full-time, and that could actually make expectation and be for the benefit of both sides. Empower your team. I think that it's crucial that the co-founders and the management team will know that they are there just to delegate and make sure that they are giving their developers, designers, product leads all the tools and capabilities in order to build what they think this is the best. And Jim Collins, that I mentioned before, wrote several amazing books that I highly recommend you to read, like Built to Last and Good to Great. And he's describing level 5 leader as the top level of a leader that could be. And you could think of someone like Steve Jobs or Jeff Bezos of Amazon as people that you'll want to mimic, but behave, of course, nicely. Good is fine. One of the things that we're seeing more and more in startups is the trying to polish too much things. And of course, it's always great because you do want to have this amazing magic experience. But on the other side of this equation, you do want to focus on your most valuable product, service, and sometimes you just want to get it out, get the feedback from your users, and then iterate and improve it over time. So the main point here is not to wait 2 years down the road and then put something in the air and get real knowledge from your users on what it does to them, but be agile and try to take small decisions that are much better to encapsulate and then just keep iterate on them very frequently. I think Google is a great example for doing exactly that, even in a large organization, not only in a startup. In a startup, in my last startup, we actually called ourselves look at ourselves more as a small car, not a small boat, but basically you enjoying the ability to pivot quickly and to move quickly. And that's something that you really want to grasp and take it to your own hands and advantage, because big organizations are moving much more slowly. It's true that when they are taking the decision and they are moving, there are the elephants on the path and you don't want to be on that path, but at least you could pivot quickly and avoid them. So the main point here is to keep in mind that your money that you raised and the resources that you got are very limited, and you'll probably need more than you expect, so try to be as efficient as possible and execute as quickly as possible. When we're coming to speak about a business and not a startup, I think it's just connecting us to the first point, which is try to avoid this la-la land or this everlasting land that some people are living in, and don't neglect the ability to monetize or to leverage the ability to have this other side of the equation of revenue or some kind of revenue stream. And I mentioned, of course, that people that are building just to exit are basically with a high probability building to flop. Beliefs and reality, I see some of the young entrepreneurs that are coming here to the campus and we're mentoring them, coming with sentences like the first two here. And in most of the cases, it's very, very far from reality. So the only way that you confirm yourself that you know what your user really want is after you launch a product and you have the metrics and you measure them. And as you all know, you can't manage what you can't measure, and you do want to measure everything and anything in order to understand deeply what is making your user happy, and then iterate over it and try to make it even more magical. Predicting the future or the far future, of course, you could see all over that people fail tremendously in trying to predict the near future, and actually the far even greater inaccuracy. The progress in measuring progress, there's lots of talks about Agile, Scrum, Kanban, and lots of other movements that trying to move us and shifting us into smaller chunks of work that you can predict better, set the level of effort in order to accomplish them, and then helping us be the speedboat that we spoke about on the last slide, and respond quickly and act quickly. Focusing, I think, is one of the most important aspects. Because you have limited resources, limited time, limited money, you want to make sure that you're focusing, and all the people in your organization, and it could be, you know, the 3 co-founders, are just focusing on the same needle that we want to move. Passion, of course, if people are not passionate, and especially in the core team, if you don't see the light in their eyes and they don't put those 140% or 200% of effort and time and devotion into the startup, probably it won't be a successful one. And execution, I think it's one of the most important aspects to consider. Great ideas are all over, but what's really differentiate is the execution and how well you execute according to your objective and key results. Plan, of course, it's a must, and you do want to plan and you do want to set goals quarterly, yearly, and probably something above, so everyone will be clear about what is the North Star of your venture, your company, and where you want to see yourself on the long run. But keep attention that everything is changing, everything is volatile, and you do want to be as agile as possible, because this is one of the strength capabilities that you have at the beginning. Find good advisors, easy to say, really hard to do, but when you do find them, pay attention that you listen and you are able to gain and leverage their feedback. What to do fast, so we spoke about those main components, and I highly recommend you, if you are in the front-end development arena and you producing interesting product services to the web, the diagram here are coming to emphasize that we need and actually changing today the ways that we work in the past. So basically this diagram just showing us that it's a never-ending story. We keep iterating after we're working and launching the first version of something, and this is the way to make sure that we are executing as fast as we can. What to avoid? So yeah, if you are not an expert on bikes, probably you do want to avoid this situation. And in our case, when you're coming to pitch to angel and investors, each and every sentence here is well, how should I put it, is very known and well preserved from their side. They know to identify it as pure BS, and you probably want to avoid them. So our product will go viral because we're doing X or Y. You want to pay attention and to make sure that you have a good plan, because in most of the cases it won't. No one else is doing, probably it's a bad sign and a red flag, because if no one doing it, probably there's a good reason. Try to think about successful companies that you know and amazing ventures that you see. In most of the cases, they did have some competitors at the early days, and there's lots of examples on that. Projections are conservative. Well, you could smile when you're saying it. And all the others are also very, very good points. And as I mentioned, large companies might be too small or too big or too whatever, but you need to come with real arguments why it's viable niche or why you could execute much better than the current competitors. And on the other side of the equation, for investor, when you're seeing one of these, probably a flag should rise in your eyes. And each and every sentence here is quite well known and quite common, unfortunately. As you all know, a VC or a typical angel will see hundreds of startups, entrepreneurs, and then they will invest in, I don't know, a dozen or less. So the probabilities that you will be able to raise money are quite low, and some of the things here are quite common. And actually try to just go and put your efforts and move on with other investors or VCs. Some resources that I highly recommend you to check out. If you want to see what Google Cloud Platform is offering entrepreneurs these days, this is the link on cloud.google.com. Any other materials that we have today for startups and entrepreneurs and developers are on developers.google.com/startups. For the entrepreneurs that want to launch and start new businesses, there's an amazing series from Stanford, and it's an entrepreneurship corner, and it's a great ability to listen to thought leaders and amazing entrepreneurs that did it, and to learn and gain from their experience. And some blogs that I personally really like, AVC of course, Fred Simon from Twitter fame, and lots of other companies like Foursquare, of course, and Paul Graham from Y Combinators and Ben Feld. All of them are great angel investors, VC investors, and of course, people that write extremely well. If you have any questions, please feel free right now. It's a great opportunity. And if not, just ping me on G+ or through my blog. Thank you very much. And until next Wednesday, be strong and happy.